Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jayam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirya Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 13, further talks between King Rahugana and Jadbharat. Text number 18 onwards. Drumeshu Ransyan Sutdharavatsalo Vyavaya Dino Vivashah Swabandhane Kvachit Pramada Giri Kandare Patan Vallim Grihitva Gajabhita Astita. When the living entity becomes exactly like a monkey jumping from one branch to another, he remains in the tree of household life without any profit but sex. Thus he is kicked by his wife just like the he-ass. Unable to gain release, he remains helplessly in that position. Sometimes he falls victim to an incurable disease, which is like falling into a mountain cave. He becomes afraid of death, which is like the elephant in the back of that cave, and he remains stranded, grasping at the twigs and branches of a creeper. The precarious condition of a householder's life is described herein. A householder's life is full of misery, and the only attraction is sex with the wife, who kicks him during sexual intercourse, just as a she-ass does her mate. Due to continuous sex life, he falls victim to many incurable diseases. At that time, being afraid of death, which is like an elephant, he remains hanging from the twigs and branches of the tree, just like a monkey. So this is a story of a person, materialistic person in the forest, material forest, and what happens to him. So in the his previous verse, he was compared to like a monkey. He just jumps from one branch to another, only interested in sense gratification. And here Jadbharat is saying further. And he just remains in the tree of household life without any profit. And he just gets chastised by his wife, by his children, and at the time of death, being at the time of death, he's afraid of just death, which is like an elephant in a mountain cave. And so, elephant in a mountain cave, so monkey has nowhere else to go, but he's still holding on to the twigs and branches of the tree, just thinking that this will save me. Twigs and branches are like children and the wife and the near and dear ones. Nobody can save it. Atha kathachit sa vimukta apadah punascha sartham pravishakti arindam advanim mushmin jaya viniveshito brahmajano adyapi naved kaschan. O killer of enemies, Maharaj Rahugana, if the conditioned soul somehow or other gets out of his dangerous position, he again returns to his home to enjoy his sex life, for that is a way of attachment. Thus, under the spell of the Lord's material energy, he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. He does not discover his real interest even at the point of death. This is the way of material life. When one is captured by sexual attraction, he becomes implicated in so many ways and cannot understand the real aim of life. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Nate vidu svarthagatim hi Vishnu. Generally, people do not understand the ultimate goal of life. As stated in the Vedas, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Surya. Those who are spiritually advanced simply look to the lotus feet of Vishnu. The conditioned soul, however, not being interested in reviving his relationship with Vishnu, becomes captivated by material activities and remains in the everlasting bondage, being misled by so-called leaders. So ultimate goal of life is to take shelter of lotus feet of Vishnu, to hang on to lotus feet of Vishnu. But conditioned soul, generally, they are not at all interested in that. They're only interested in their family and in their wife and children and money and and that's it. And he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. Just few chapters back in fourth canto, Narad Muni was instructing Maharaj Prachin Bharishat with the story of Puranjan. And here, Jad Bharat is speaking in this way, the story of material forest and how a living entity just gets entrapped in that. So many instructions in Srimad Bhagavatam. Rahugan Twamapi Hiva Advanosya Sanyasta Dandaha Kritabhuta Metraha Asanjitatma Harisevaya Shitam Jnana Simadaya Tarati Param. My dear King Rahugana, you're also a victim of the external energy, being situated on the path of attraction to material pleasure, so that you may become an equal friend to all living entities. I now advise you to give up your kingly position and the rod by which you punish criminals. Give up attraction to the sense objects and take up the sword of knowledge sharpened by devotional service. Then you will be able to cut the hard knot of illusory energy and cross to the other side of ocean of nescience. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna compares the material world to a tree of illusion from which one must cut oneself free. So that axe is the axe of knowledge, by which one can cut the hard knot of illusory energy and then go to the other side of nescience. The real form of this tree in the 15th chapter, Krishna says, cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. So doing, one must seek that place from which, having once gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything has begun and in whom everything is abiding since time immemorial. So with the knowledge, one makes progress on the path of bhakti and then makes further progress. But without knowledge, it's just very difficult to make progress, because with knowledge, one can cut down this tree of ignorance. Rajavach, aho nri janma khil janma shobhanam, kim janma bhis tva pariyar apim amushmin, na yad rishikesha yasha kritatmanam, mahatmanam vah prachura samagamaha. King Rahugana said, this birth as a human being is the best of all. Even birth among the demigods in the heavenly planets is not as glorious as birth as a human being on this earth. What is the use of exalted position of a demigod? In the heavenly planets, due to profuse material comforts, there is no possibility of associating with the devotees. Human birth is a great opportunity for self-realization. One may take birth in a high planetary system among the demigods, but due to the profusion of material comforts, one cannot gain release from material bondage. Even on this earth, those who are very opulent do not generally care to take to Krishna consciousness. An intelligent person actually interested in getting freed from the material clutches must associate with pure devotees. By such association, one can gradually become detached from the material attraction of money and women. Money and women are the basic principles of material attachment. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised those who are actually serious about returning back to Godhead to give up money and women in order to be fit to enter the kingdom of God. Money and women can be fully utilized in the service of the Lord, and one who can utilize them in this way can become freed from material bondage. Satam prasangam mama vire samvito. Only in the association of devotees can one relish the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just through a little association with the pure devotee, one can become successful in his journey back home, back to Godhead. So Jad Bharat gave very strict advice to King Rahugana, give up this kingly position and take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. And this is what King Rahugana is saying. Only in the association of devotees, one can gain this knowledge and this and get this encouragement, motivation to advance further. So money and of course, women for men and men for women, the attraction of the opposite sex is very binding to the material world, very much binding. But when a person is in that association, he cannot think of anything else. Just like these days, whatever all those different days are going on, chocolate day and this day and that day, I don't know, where do they come up with all these ideas? In fact, they talk about Valentine's Day and they say it's after Saint Valentine, but Saint Valentine himself was a brahmachari. He was a celibate monk. And he was tortured because he was preaching gospel to the people. Don't know how in his name they're celebrating that day as a day of love. Where is the connection? Who knows? So, that's what Saint Valentine was preaching, the knowledge of God. And this is the most important thing. And this is what Rahugana is saying and Srila Prabhupada is saying. Only in the association of devotees one can relish the glorification. And as long as one is attached to money and opposite sex, he will not take the association of devotees. Because one gets very puffed up. And to impress the opposite sex, especially men, to impress women, they try to show off that, see, I'm such a big guy and I don't listen to all these poor looking sadhus. And women also, they won't want their man to go and sit with all these sadhus because then he won't get attracted to them. So it's so dangerous. But this is how the material world goes on. Nahi adbhutam tvatcharnabdhir renubhir hatant hatso bhaktir adhokshaje amala mohurti kadyasya samagamachame dustarka mulo apahato avivekaha. It is not at all wonderful that simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adhokshaja, which is not available even to great demigods like Brahma. By associating with you just for a moment, I am now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination, which are the roots of entanglement in the material world. Now I am free from all these problems. So I am freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination. Association with pure devotees certainly frees one from the material clutches. This is certainly true of King Rahugana's association with Jad Bharat. King Rahugana was immediately freed from the misgivings of material association. The arguments offered by pure devotees to the disciples are so convincing that even a dull-headed disciple is immediately enlightened with spiritual knowledge. So, momentarily association. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says, and Bhagavatam again and again says, just a moment association with pure devotee can really change one's lives. Namo Mahad Bhayostu Namah Shishubhyo Namo Yuvabhyo Nama Nam Avatubhya Ye Brahmana Gama Vadhut Linga Charanti Tebhya Shivamastu Ragam. I offer my respectful obeisances, surface of children, young boys, avadhutas, or great Brahmans. Even if they are hidden under their different guises, I offer my respects to all of them. Their mercy made them. King Rahugana was very repentant because he had forced Bharat to carry his palanquin. He therefore began offering prayers to all kinds of Brahmins and self-realized persons, even though they might be playing like children or hiding in some guises. We don't know who our children are and who our spouses are. We don't know who are they in the previous lives. The four Kumaras walked everywhere in the guise of 5-year-old boys, and similarly, there are many Brahmins, lords of Brahman, who traverse the globe either as young men, due to their position, the royal dynasties generally offend these great personalities. Therefore, King Rahugana began to offer his respectful obeisances unto them, so that the offensive royal dynasties may not glide down into a hellish condition. If one offends a great personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not excuse one, although the great personalities themselves might not take offense. Maharaj Ambarish was offended by Durvasa, who even approached Lord Vishnu for pardon. Lord Vishnu would not grant him pardon. Therefore, he had to fall down at the lotus feet of Maharaj Ambarish. Even though Maharaj Ambarish was a Kshatriya Grihastha, one should be very careful not to offend the lotus feet of Vaishnavas and of Brahmins. So this story of Maharaj Ambarish...
Online bhi chala ja.
Hare Krishna, please mute yourself. So this story of Maharaj Ambarish will come in 9th canto, a wonderful story of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni, this incident. So King Rahugana, he is offering obeisances and is asking for forgiveness on behalf of all the Kshatriyas who have offended all the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Because when somebody becomes powerful, he just stops discriminating and he offends. So to become a king, it's a matter of great responsibility. Text 24. So we'll just go to the translation. Srila Shukdev Goswami continued, "My dear king," means my dear king Parikshit, "O son of mother Uttara, there were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Jad Bharat due to his being insulted by King Rahugana, who made him carry his palanquin. But Jad Bharat neglected this, and his heart again became calm and quiet, like an ocean. Although King Rahugana had insulted him, he was a great Paramhansa. Being a Vaishnava, he was naturally very kind-hearted, and he therefore told the king about the constitutional position of the soul. He then forgot the insult because King Rahugana pitifully begged pardon at his lotus feet. After this, he began to wander all over the earth, just as before." In Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapil Dev describes the symptoms of great personalities. Titikshivva karanika suhrida sarvadehina. A saintly devotee is certainly very tolerant. He is a friend of all living entities and he does not create enemies within the world. A pure devotee has all the qualities of sadhu. Jad Bharat is an example of this. Due to the material body, his senses were certainly agitated when he was insulted by King Rahugana. But later, due to king's humble submission, Jadbharat excused him. So in the beginning, he was little dissatisfied when king asked him to carry his palanquin. But just after that, he just neglected and he became calm and quiet again. Because he's, after all, he's self-realized soul, so he had control over his senses. It's the duty of everyone desiring to return to Godhead to become submissive, like King Rahugana, and beg pardon of Vaishnavas one may have offended. Vaishnavas are generally very kind-hearted. Therefore, if one immediately submits himself at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, one is immediately cleared of offensive reactions. If one does not do so, the reactions will remain and the result will not be very palatable. And we commit offenses pretty much every day. Every day we are committing offenses. And the first offense actually we commit is at home with our husbands or wives or children who are good Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, but we don't treat them like that. So that is why in the morning and with sincerity, one should pay obeisances to one's spouse, Vancha kalparubhyascha, and say that, and then carry on these duties, so that we understand that he or she is also a Vaishnava. Whether he's performing devotional service the way we are or not, doesn't matter. Because some Matajis must be thinking their husbands are not devotees, and some Prabhujis must be thinking their wives are not devotees, but they all are devotees. Otherwise, they won't be married to a devotee. So treat them as such, and then try not to offend. That's all. Text 25, translation. After receiving lessons from the great devotee Jadbharat, King Rahugana of the state of Shavira became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul. He thus gave up the bodily conception completely. My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified, because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. So again and again, this glorification of the association of devotees is coming up. Prabhupada says, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, sadhu sanga, sarva shastrika. Love matra sadhu sanga sarva siddhi hoy. It is a fact that one takes shelter of a pure devotee, one attains all perfection. Association is a short one. A sadhu is a pure devotee of the Lord. It has been our practical experience that the first instruction of our spiritual master infused us with Krishna consciousness, so that now we are at least on the path of Krishna consciousness and can understand the philosophy. As a result, there are many devotees engaged in this Krishna consciousness movement. The whole world is revolving under the bodily conception. Therefore, there must be devotees all over the world to deliver people from the false bodily conception and fully engage them in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is talking about himself, that when he first met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and it was in Calcutta on the Ulta Danga Road building, number 1, I think, 1 Ulta Danga Road. And on the roof, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was giving lecture, and Prabhupada with his friend went to see him. And they had just paid obeisances. The first time he was seeing Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and while he was getting a Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he saw the spiritual potency of Srila Prabhupada, and he gave them instruction. You are an educated man, why don't you take up the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and preach it in English in the Western countries. So he gave him his life's mission right away. Srila Prabhupada was not even connected with the movement anywhere. But Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj could see the spiritual potency. But Prabhupada is so humble, he's saying, now because of that, we are at least on the path of Krishna consciousness and can understand the philosophy. If this is what Prabhupada is saying, he was writing the commentaries on Bhagavatam, it's the 5th canto. And he's saying, I can at least understand the philosophy because of his mercy. That's real humility. Yeah, text 26. King Parikshit then told Shukdev Goswami, my dear Lord, O great devotee sage, you are omniscient. You have very nicely described the position of the conditioned soul, who is compared to a merchant in the forest. From these instructions, intelligent men can understand that the senses of a person in the bodily conception are like rogues and thieves in that forest, and one's wife and children are like jackals and other ferocious animals. However, it's not very easy for the unintelligent to understand the purport of this story because it is difficult to extricate the exact meaning from the allegory. I therefore request your holiness to give the direct meaning, purport. There are many stories and incidents in Srimad Bhagavatam that are described figuratively. Such allegorical descriptions may not be understood by unintelligent men. Therefore, it is a duty of the student to approach a bona fide spiritual master for the direct explanation. So there ends the 13th chapter. Next chapter, Shukdev Goswami will describe all the allegorical similes that he gave, what exactly he meant. But this is also a way for Shukdev Goswami to check if King Parikshit was listening attentively or not. If only an attentive listener would put up these questions. So, and also this makes the speaker very happy, and he wants to speak more. He wants to speak more enthusiastically, and he wants to give more and more instructions and knowledge to the listener, to the audience. So anyway, so we'll stop here, and tomorrow we'll start the next chapter, chapter 14. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my
Hare Krishna.
humble. जी अपना अगर ये चैंटिंग माला जो है वो टूट जाता है तो हमको क्या करना चाहिए? क्योंकि मैंने वो चैंटिंग माला को ना मतलब बांध करके मतलब मैंने जो ऊपर वाला जो पार्ट होता है ना जो गुरु का होता है वहां से जहां से हम टर्न करते हैं माले को 108 कंप्लीट होने के बाद तो वहां पे ही वो टूट गया है। मैं उसको बांध करके मैं यूज कर रही हूँ, मुझे दूसरा लेना चाहिए।
तो ओके, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वो गुरु का नहीं होता, वो राधा कृष्ण का कंबाइंड होता है, तो दैट्स व्हाई वी डोंट क्रॉस ओवर दैट बीट। और टूट गया है अभी बांध के कर लो एंड यू जस्ट कीप अ काउंट प्रॉपर, बट व्हेन यू गो टू वृंदावन यू कैन गेट इट फिक्स्ड, दे कैन फिक्स इट।
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
So that's why we generally keep one spare mala with us always. If these things break.
Prabhuji, what I have experienced is that कि हम लोग जब भी मतलब चैंटिंग करते हैं रेगुलर वो सब बहुत अच्छा लगता है, मतलब सुनना बहुत अच्छा लगता है, चैंटिंग करना अच्छा लगता है, बट स्टिल कुछ दिनों के बाद क्या होता है कि अपने आप वो कम हो जाता है और फिर वो चैंटिंग कम हो जाती है तो फ्रस्ट्रेशन आने लगता है, फिर कभी सुनने पे इफेक्ट होता है। तो मतलब हम फिक्स ही नहीं रह पाते कि करे तो क्या करे, हो क्या रहा है ये, मतलब क्या गलती कर दी, मतलब कहीं कुछ गलती हो गई क्या, फिर से मन नहीं लग रहा है चैंटिंग में, या मन लग रहा है तो मतलब सिचुएशन ऐसा हो रहा है कि लोग टोक दे रहे हैं, या खुद मतलब खुद को बुरा लग रहा है कि कैसे करे, अभी यहाँ पे लोग बैठे हुए हैं, इनसे अभी हट के करेंगे तो मतलब फैमिली का तो इश्यूज रहता है, मतलब फैमिली के आप जब भी सुबह उठ के चैंटिंग करना चाहेंगे तो उस टाइम पे रहता है कभी कभी कि आप ध्यान नहीं लगा पा रहे हैं, आप उठ भी गए अकेले करना है तब भी ध्यान नहीं लग रहा है, तो मतलब ये सर्कल क्यों होता रहता है, मतलब हमको लगता है हम फॉल डाउन ही कर रहे हैं बार बार और नीचे गिरते जा रहे हैं, तो मतलब क्या करना है ऐसे में।
तो ये स्ट्रगल तो रहेगी. This is struggle. It's a sweet struggle, but you keep on doing it. Keep on doing it. There's no option, and there's no alternative. So bring your mind back, bring time back, and pray to Krishna. Pray to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, please help me. Please help me. And they will make the arrangements.
Yes, Prabhuji, ये बात तो सही है that Prabhupada and praying to Krishna help, but वही होता है that अचानक से वो फिर से flow आ जाता है and we feel so happy, अरे it's going on all good, and then फिर से oh shit.
वो जहाँ जहाँ थोड़ा कंप्लेसेंसी आएगी तो कृष्ण ने थोड़ा धक्का तो देना है ना, उठाना तो है ही है कि नहीं कंप्लेसेंसी नहीं चाहिए, अलर्टनेस चाहिए. just like जैसे एथलीट्स होते हैं, when they prepare for some big event, they don't do any complacency. No way. I mean, if you read about Sachin Tendulkar, he's the number one batsman for years and years and years, but still, every time before a match, he would practice for 2-3 hours straight. Every time. He didn't take it. अरे मेरे को तो सब आता है. No. I was told क्योंकि there are so many kirtaniyas in ISKCON, wonderful devotees who do wonderful kirtan. And I was told by what's his name, Muktidatta Prabhu in Delhi temple, because he used to sing very, very melodiously, very nice. And I wanted to learn, but I was such a fool, I could not learn anything. He told me that he had met Anup Jalota. And we all know Anup Jalota, how good a singer he was. But he said, Anup Jalota, even till today, every morning he does 1 hour of riyaz. Every single morning. So they have to practice. So similarly with us, we have to put in our effort in this. I have to chant seriously and sincerely and attentively. And Krishna, see, in this case, chanting is a lifeline of devotion service, and Krishna is sitting in our heart. He will definitely help, seeing our eagerness. He just wants to see our eagerness, how eager it is. So that's all. We just have to try our best. But okay, sometimes it must be lacking. Fine, we pray to Krishna, pray to Prabhupada, and get back again. Maya is not giving up her attacks. She's attacking 24/7. So how can we be complacent?
Oh, thank you so much, Prabhuji. This was really important. Yes.
Thank you, Mata.
Thank you very much.
I guess we can stop. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.